Hello and welcome once again to this next series of the next video in the series of the frequently asked questions section from the Humble Seeker videos. The next question that was asked, number 11, is what do you think about witchcraft, spells, the use of white magic or divination with the tarot? I answered it by saying this. I realize that there may be many who will disagree with me in these areas, and I mean no disrespect or offense to any person when I answer as I do. But a rule that one would be wise to follow is to realize that anyone who is willing to call themselves a witch, regardless of how much they may protest to the contrary, either is trying to fool you or themselves, or they don't fully understand all the ramifications of doing so. Let that be a word to the wise. If you will view these videos carefully, you will see also that I don't encourage the use of so-called spells or magic of any kind, white or certainly black. There is too much risk in dealing with things not fully understood. You could harm someone else, which would bring karma back to you. Or you could get yourself into a situation like that of the young man in the book Zanoni, who dabbled with things that he didn't even begin to understand and brought himself and others great misery. If you seek first the right things in your life, then that which you need will be provided. It may not be all you want, but I have found in my experience that it will be enough. Using spells or magic says that one feels one knows enough to alter the natural order of things to be the way one wants them to be, or believes that they should be. Excuse me. There's no waiting around to let thy will be done for such a person. If you've seen the movie The Last Unicorn, you know that the young man that was known as a magician had far greater success when he took the approach of saying, magic, magic, do as you will, in other words, let thy will be done, than he did by simply trying what he thought would be best. With the tarot you have a somewhat similar situation. Divining the future implies that you are in a hurry to find out what is ahead. It isn't always best to have that information in advance. Excuse me. Some of us insist that we want or need a blueprint to know what is ahead. Then if we don't happen to like what we find, we decide that magic is needed to change it about to better suit us. This is not the true purpose of the tarot. Using magic to change our lives is not necessarily the best use of the life that we came here to live and experience. There are videos in this series that mention the tarot and some that mention magic that might be of interest. Once again, please consider a word to the wise. Question 12 asks, what can you tell me about healing and where can I learn how to do it? Healing can be accomplished in a number of ways, including herbal therapy, color therapy, sound therapy, laying on of hands, Reiki, prayer, and many others, as well as more traditional methods of healing. These are in addition to the relatively recent method known as chiropractic and the other less recent, more traditional methods used by today's Western doctors as indicated, as well as some of the more Eastern traditions which have been in use for centuries. It isn't always wise to recommend one method over another without sufficient knowledge about a given situation, except for the fact that prayer, when requested by another or when needed for you or for someone under your responsibility, is rather universal. I generally find that there may be places and times which call for any one or more of the methods mentioned and perhaps other methods not mentioned, and still yet others about which I'm unaware. The higher self of the person in need will often move that person in the direction of one or another of these methods, depending on the nature of that person's needs. Not all may be healed, Some may need other experiences and the lessons that go with them. Please note that it's very risky to oneself to employ any type of healing on behalf of another person without that person asking for your help in some way or being under your authority and responsibility, such as your minor children would be. The only exceptions might be if you happen upon an accident where people are unable to ask for help. Excuse me. Even then you should take care, but it should be noted that to do nothing to try to help in such a situation would be irresponsible. Normally, though, in the latter situation, when in doubt, help. The reason we must be so careful is because of the fact that if you take it upon yourself to heal, or if you have healed someone who hasn't asked you for that help, you could very likely take upon yourself the burden of that person's karma that has caused their need for healing in the first place. I'm sure there are many books on the subject of healing, some good, some not so good. It would serve most people better generally to work on their own personal spiritual growth. If that is properly done, then other things like healing will often become more or less a part of your life. In other words, being included as a part of your spiritual growth, but perhaps only as need may exist. Question 13 asks, you have written about ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, and knock and it shall be opened unto you. This doesn't seem to work for me. Why not? The person who asked that question was concerned, and I responded in this way. One of the first things for you to examine is this: what kinds of things have you been asking and seeking, and what has been your motivation for doing so? Are you seeking to improve your fortune or increase your ownership of material things? If that is the case, that is probably not the highest path for you or for any true seeker. Is there any possibility that ego or anything self-serving, or if there's anything that could harm or take advantage of another, might be involved in any way? I don't intend any offense by suggesting these areas of consideration, but only to help you to be certain that you're asking for and knocking for and seeking for the right things for the right reasons. If so, then there are other things that you can consider. You may not be ready for that for which you have asked. If that is so, it is a favor to you that is not delivered. Later in this life, some of the things may yet come if you have originally asked for the right things in the right way and for the right reasons. There is also the possibility that the thing for which you have asked may seem very appealing at the time, but your higher self or other positive forces may know that at a later date you may realize that having it is not in your best interests, and they bless you by keeping it away. If so, that is truly a blessing for some of us. Get that for which we ask, and find that we have made a serious error. It may also be that you have expected that your answer would come in a certain form or from a certain source, or at a certain time, when in fact it could have come and gone, being missed because you were focused on one way of thinking or how it would come, and it came by another. If you're seeking first to experience spiritual growth or to have greater understanding of spiritual things, and such things are your primary motivation to help you serve more perfectly, then they will come when your guide knows that the time is right. This may seem very complex, all of it, but the point that I want to make is that if you seek, ask, or knock in a way that is less and less for self, and more for the sake of serving higher positive forces, and do not place limits on where or when or how your response should come, and then you are willing to, let's say, let their will be done. Are you getting the idea? If you're already doing these things in this way, and please examine it carefully so you don't answer, yes I am, too quickly. then there may be one other method that could help. Ask that you be guided to recognize the response or answer that is given to you, or that you be guided to recognize the right path to take, and that these things be done in such a way that you cannot possibly misunderstand what to do. And then be watchful from all sources. In other words, keep your eyes and ears open. I'll caution you, however, that if you take this latter course, the results may sometimes be rather dramatic. I hope, though, that this has given you some ideas and perhaps some things to think about that will be of benefit. Question 14 says, ever since I started on the path, I seem to have nothing but problems. I would have thought that it would have been just the opposite. Can you offer any insight? I believe that I can. Once we have in some way given ourselves or dedicated ourselves to a life of service to higher positive forces, excuse me, it can bring changes to our lives. When we put our feet upon the path, or even more so when we ask God or the Christ to come into our lives and take us and make us what He would have us to be, the changes may at times seem somewhat sudden and or dramatic. It is not a casual thing to give yourself in dedication to God in such a way. As I have explained in these videos, it is a very serious matter. When God or His higher positive forces begin to prepare us for a life of service, one of the things that is usually done is to begin to clear the slate, so to speak, where our karmic debts are concerned. This then allows us in the future to serve unencumbered by these karmic burdens. Depending on what we have to be worked through, things can get pretty rough sometimes, even though God will usually try to be as gentle as possible, and we should try to learn from all that happens to us at such times. Some people say that their lives seemed almost to be turned upside down for a time, while others find it to be not quite so much that way. It depends on what karmic debts we have. If this is something that you've made the decision to do, or if you have in fact already done this, then it could explain why you're having the kind of difficulties you're having. If so, patience and prayer and a good heart will see you through. Have patience. So many people don't understand that one of the most important reasons that we reincarnate on this earth is to experience life's problems and overcome life's problems, to master life's problems to the degree that we, during that process, learn the life lessons that are associated with these problems. It is for this reason that I usually recommend to people that they pray about such things. Pray that you will learn all that you need to learn from those things which happen to you. Pray to approach and deal with these problems in accordance with the will of your guide, probably your higher self. Or pray to God to approach and deal with the problems in accordance with His will, so that you will do so, if you prefer. If you should also, or rather you should also resolve to do the best that you can while working through these things, and you should pray for greater strength always, not fewer problems. Finally, try the best that you can to approach life with a good heart, meaning a heart that is without hate or anger, and that is looking more and more towards service and less towards self. If you do your best to do all these things, and do your best to think or do nothing with malice toward any other, and do the best you can to approach others with an attitude of universal love, then I don't believe that you can possibly help but be benefited. All of these problems that you deal with successfully and master in this life are things that are then behind you and will not be waiting for you in your next life. We should not expect to attain all of these goals overnight, or perhaps even to attain all of them, period. But we can do better as we go on through life. If you're already doing all these things, then you're making more progress than you know, and getting things These things that we call life's difficulties are perhaps karmic adjustments behind you. Remember that if it were not for the fact that we have experienced every day of our lives, up to and including the current day in this incarnation, we would not be and could not be the person that we are today. In other words, it is the experiences that we have had in this life, both so-called good and so-called bad experiences as we may see them, and the manner in which we deal with those experiences, which help to mold us or make us into the person we are today. I thank you for watching. I now invite you to watch the next video in this Frequently Asked Questions series. Thanks again.